Hello and welcome to Glad You Asked. My name is Bryn. Glad You Asked is a series of videos where we discuss questions about the Bible and the Christian faith, and we do our best to give good answers. Now, a while ago at work, my wife had a conversation with two co-workers. They got on chatting about what they all believe. Now, the first co-worker was not particularly religious. Then the second co-worker was a devout Muslim. And then the third was my wife, a devout Christian. Now, during the course of the conversation, the non-religious co-worker insinuated that my wife and her Muslim colleague essentially believe in the same God at the end of the day. And that's the claim I kind of want to look at today. It can be phrased in a number of ways, and you might have heard some of these before. Here's some common ways of putting it. Different religions are just different paths to the same destination. Or perhaps someone might say, ultimately everyone is worshipping the same God, as my wife's co-worker said. Or, so long as you're sincere in your faith, you'll go to heaven. Perhaps the clearest formulation of this view is to say it's the belief that different religions are simply different ways or different angles on one truth, and that no one religion has a monopoly on truth. Now, on the surface, this seems like quite a generous way of looking at religions. It seems to respect all religious people, and it affirms what everyone believes. But we need to ask ourselves, what are the assumptions that have to be made in order to say this? What are the things that you have to believe about religions in order to conclude that they are all essentially the same? Let me go through a few. The first assumption is that there is no unique revelation or real revelation from God in history. So God hasn't actually spoken with any kind of clarity. And so every time someone says, this is what God is like, and he told me so, they're actually just speculating. Second, there's the assumption that when people talk about religious truths or experiences, it always falls short of the reality. And so they're describing aspects of something that's true, but it's never completely the whole story. Third, there's the assumption that all religions agree on the big things, but only disagree on little things. And the last assumption that's assumed, and I think this is the one that's the most ambitious, is that the person who views all religions as essentially the same is assuming to have a greater knowledge of what God is like and of spiritual matters than every single one of the devout adherents to any particular religion, all those people who would disagree with this person. So it's not the case, actually, that this position is generous and affirming of everyone's religion. The only way you can get to a point where you say every religion is true is by undermining the actual claims of those religions. So it doesn't help you claim every religion is true at the cost of all of the claims made by those religions. So it's clear then that there are actual differences between religions, and it's impossible to affirm that they all have an equal claim to truth and that they're all equally true. We actually need to deal with the differences. Now, the thing about truth claims is that they're always exclusive. Take, for example, the claim that 2 + 2 = 4. If I say that, I exclude the possibility that 2 + 2 can equal 47. That would either be false or true. But both can't be true. 2 + 2 cannot equal 4 and 47 at the same time. In the same way, religions make truth claims about what God is like, maybe about the nature of the world that we live in, and what happens after we die. It can't be true that, for example, that we have to worship the one single creator God, but also true that we should worship an entire pantheon or roster of gods at the same time. Religious truth claims are exclusive, as are all truth claims. So how do we deal with these differences? Well, it's simple. We have to actually examine the claims themselves. We can't just bunch them all together and say they're all true. You actually need to look at the individual claims and see where they clash and agree. And through that process, we see which of these religions corresponds with reality, if any. And the thing with Christianity is You don't have to sit and wonder how it is that you might check its validity. Christians don't point their key beliefs at some subjective religious experience that someone had, but rather we point to a specific event in history that either happened or it didn't. It's either the truth or it's a lie. Don't take my word for it. Let's see what the Bible has to say. This event is described in 1 Corinthians 15. Paul writes, "If Christ has not been raised, our preaching is useless, and so is your faith. More than that, we are found to be false witnesses about God, for we have testified about God that he raised Christ from the dead." Did you catch that? The resurrection is the central claim. To just paraphrase what Paul said, it said as follows: if Jesus wasn't raised from the dead, then all the Christian teaching that we've done and your belief in Jesus is a complete waste of time. Not only that, we've perjured ourselves, we've shown ourselves to be false witnesses and unreliable witnesses about God, because we are making the claim as central that he raised Jesus from the dead. So the implication is, if Jesus wasn't raised from the dead, you can reject all the other Christian teachings. Now, right on that point, we have this exclusive truth claim. It's either true or it isn't. Jesus either rose from the dead or he didn't. And we can, on that point at least, examine 3 major religions all in one go and see which of them is telling the truth. For example, Judaism claims Jesus did indeed live, he was a human, but that he died and he never rose again. Islam, on the other hand, claims Jesus was a real human, a prophet, but that he didn't actually die and then he was raised to heaven. Christianity, on the other hand, claims Jesus lived, he died, and then he was raised again to life, and that he still lives. Now, there's no way all 3 claims can be true at the same time. They are mutually exclusive claims. If Jesus really rose from the dead, and of course as a Christian I believe that he did, I think it's the best explanation of the historical record and what happened afterwards, then all the claims Jesus made about himself are vindicated, because his resurrection was the proof of all of his claims. If Jesus really rose from the dead, then his testimony, his words about himself, are vindicated and can be trusted. So what are some things that Jesus said? What claims did he make about himself? Well, he made exclusive claims. Claims that are irreconcilable with other religions. He demands that we worship no God except the God of the Bible, and that the only way in which to approach that God is through him, through Jesus. Now let's have a look at a few of these claims in particular. And one of the clearest and most famous is John 14 verse 6, where Jesus says, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." That's an exclusive claim. The God of all the world is only approachable through Jesus, he says. On another occasion, he was speaking about how it is that we receive eternal life, or what you might call heaven. And this is what he says: "Very truly I tell you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man," that's Jesus, "and drink his blood, you have no life in you. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise them up at the last day." Now that's figurative language, but what the rest of the passage shows us is that Jesus is saying, unless you put your trust in him, and specifically in his death on your behalf, there is no way to attain to heaven or to eternal life. It's only found in him. And to say that all religions lead to God, or that they all lead to the same place, is to make a mockery of Jesus. And the reason I say this is quite simple. If you want to claim that there are many paths to heaven, you spit in the face of Jesus dying on our behalf. Just before he died, when Jesus was in agony and desperate not to face what he was about to face, he prayed to the Lord and he said, "If there is any other way to save people, there's any other way to achieve eternal life, don't let me be tortured and die." And the thing is, there was no other way. That is why Jesus willingly went and died. He did what needed to be done. He endured abandonment, torture, and death in order to make a way for us to be with God. So whatever issues I might have or you might have with the exclusive claims that Christianity makes, and with the rejection of any other claim that other religions make to divine knowledge and to truth, the Bible urges us to take the issue up with Jesus, who put his money where his mouth is, who died for what he believed. Now, I don't want to be dismissive of what other people believe. It just seems clear to me that at the least we can't say Jesus is one way to be saved, but there are others. Because to say that is to say what Jesus did was unnecessary. He wasted his time. He wasted his life. You're making a mockery of him. You're saying you wasted your time dying on that cross. And I'm not willing to say that to Jesus. Now, you can think Christians are arrogant, but the fact of the matter is you have to make the same claims about Jesus. And I want to close with this. R.C. Sproul, a well-known theologian who passed away a few years ago, said the following: "It's Christ who claims to be the only way. If you want to object to somebody's arrogance and bigotry and narrow-mindedness, then don't just look at Christians. Let's hear you stand up and call Christ arrogant. That's something I am unprepared to do. If Christ is a way to be saved, then I have to believe he is the only way."